Hello everyone. In our previous video, we talked about how you can clone the background remover app and use it. In today's video, we'll talk about how to create the front end from scratch on your own. So let's start by creating a new project. You can follow along if you want to create this front end on your own. The steps to create a new project are clearly mentioned in the Atri Labs documentation. So let's start the terminal and follow the steps mentioned. Let's create a new app folder first. Let's enter inside this folder. Now let's install Atri. The Atri framework is now installed. Let's activate the pipenv environment. Now let's start the engine. We can see that now we have the Atri Engines editor opened on localhost 4002. Now let's start by dragging and dropping the elements or components that we want in our front end. So let's start by dragging the parent Flexbox for the top banner. Now, as you might have seen in the design, we need to add a text that says add custom background inside this Flexbox. So let's drag and drop a text box. Now, the text should say add custom background. So let's change the text. Now, what we also saw in the design was this text was centered both vertically and horizontally. So let's do that. So for adjusting the vertical as well as horizontal alignment, what we need to do is we need to select the parent component of the text box inside the align items. Let's align it centrally. Also, let's justify the content using the center method from left to right as well. So now we can see that the text box is centered. Now let's add the background color to the top banner's Flexbox. To do that, we need to select that Flexbox and go to its background property. There we can type in the hex code of the color we want, or we can use the color pickle to select the color we want. For demonstration purposes, I already have the hex code of the color we want to use here. I'll paste that quickly. Now we can increase the height of this Flexbox so it looks good. Let's also increase the font size so it matches the background. To do that, we need to go to this typography section and type in the font size we want. I think this looks good. Now let's head over to the deployed version so that we can see the further design. We can see here after the top banner, the component are divided into two parts. One is this left side, which is the result window, and one is this right side, which is the image selection panel, where we can upload images or select images from the examples provided. To apply that, let's head over to the editor and add a parent Flexbox. We know that there are two Flexbox inside this parent Flexbox. One is the left one, the result window, and the right one, the panel window. Let's add two more Flexboxes. Now we have two Flexboxes. So what we need to do is, we clearly saw in this design that one component takes up the major space and the other component has a limited space. So to apply that property, what we need to do is, for the Flexbox, we need to have the largest space. We can go to its property, which is grow, and give it a value 1. We can see that one component is now taking the major space and the other component is taking the leftover space. So in the left box, we just need to add an image component. Let's drag an image component. Now let's give some height to this image component. We only need to provide either the height or the width so that the aspect ratio is being maintained. We can select the width in percentage as well. Now let's center this image. To do that, we just need to follow the same steps we did to center the add custom background text. The image component is now centered. Let's start working on the right panel window now. We can see that on the top there is a flex box containing two text boxes containing two different texts, that is background and image. Let's drag and drop a flex box and then drag two text box inside it. So here we have a flex box containing two text boxes. So now what we need to do is we'll change the text of these text one by one. So the first one was image and the second one was background. Now let's add some gap between these two text box. To do that, we'll select the parent component of these two text box and add some gap as columns. Let's add 40. I think this looks good. Let's add some padding in the parent flex box towards the left side, right side, and top and bottom as well. I think it looks good. Let's add some border to this parent flex box. I think it looks good. Now let's head over to the deployed version to see the further design. We can see that below this component we have another component containing a display image, an upload button, an examples text, and 4 example images. Let's add a parent flex box in our editor and add these components one by one. Let's drag a flex box and put it here. Now what we need is we need these two components one above the other, which means we need them in a vertical order, not a horizontal order. To change that, we'll select the parent flex box and choose the direction as the column direction. We need this component above this one, so we'll select this component and drag it towards the top. Yeah, this is the order we want these components in. Now let's add an image component to this flex box, which will act as the display image as shown in the design. Let's give this image some height and some width, and also let's center this image. The image is now centered. Now let's head over to the design which was deployed to see what's next. We can see that The next thing to add is an upload image button. So let's add that. We can see in the basic section here we have an upload button. Let's drag and drop. We can see the button is added from left to right direction. We need them to add vertically. So let's change the direction of the parent flex. Let's drag the image to the upside. Now we can see the components are no longer centered. Now they are centered. Let's add some gap in the parent component as row. Let's design this upload button as shown in the deployed version. To do that, what we need to do is we need to change the background color to transparent. We need to give the text color as black. And we need to remove this file name section. Let's also change the border color. The text is upload image. We'll add the assets later on. Once this is done, let's head over to the deployed version and see what's next. Next, we need to add this text called examples. Let's add. Let's drag a text box and add it at the bottom. The text should say examples. We don't need this examples text to be centered, so we'll change the alignment and give some padding. Now we can see we need to add 4 images which will act as example images for us. Let's add a parent flex, and inside it let's add those images. Inside this Flexbox we need to add 2 more Flexbox which will each contain 2 images. Each image should be resized. Let's add some fixed size to it. We need to add some gap between these images. Let's select the parent flex and give some gap as columns. Let's copy this component and paste it inside the parent component, so we have the same 2 images. To the parent of these images flex component, we need to give the direction as column. We can see this is the design we wanted to achieve, but let's add some row gap in this parent component. Let's add some border to this component. Now this component is done, so let's upload some assets so we can populate these example images and the placeholder images as well. The media or the assets can be uploaded easily using this upload button by clicking on upload media. All the assets used here will be made available and the link will be provided in the description below. Now let's start by populating these example images. To add an image to any image component, go to the settings section and click on this SRC. Now you can select the image you want to use for this image. This is done. Let's select the second one. We have to follow the same method. For the third one as well. All 4 example images have been populated. Let's set up the placeholder images. Let's add some padding for this image component. I think it looks a little bigger. Let's decrease the width. I think this looks good. Now, in the demo, we saw that we had 2 image upload panels, one for image and one for background, which we can switch by clicking on this image and background text respectively. So now what we need to do is we need to create another background image upload panel. To do that, we can copy paste all these components to create the background panel, because we know the 2 panels were very similar to each other. We just need to change the images and the placeholder image of this display image. So to do that, we need to create another parent Flexbox in which we can keep all these components and quickly copy and paste the parent component. Let's add a new Flexbox. In this Flexbox, now we'll add all these components one by one. We'll also need to give the Flexbox direction column because we need the components in the vertical direction. So to select the parent Flexbox, in those cases where we cannot see or click on the parent Flexbox, what we can do is click on the children component and press the up key. This selects the parent component of that children component. Now we have the Flexbox selected. Let's change the direction to column. Yeah, this is how we wanted it. Let's add the examples text to it. And the parent flex containing these 4 example images. To select that, we'll press up key once. Now the parent Flexbox containing 2 images is selected. We'll press up key once again. Now the Flexbox containing the 4 images is selected. Let's drag this component in the parent Flexbox. Yeah, this is how we wanted it. Let's add some gap as row in the parent Flexbox. Let's also center the components. Yep, they are now centered. Let's decrease the padding of these examples so it is left aligned. Now let's copy this parent Flexbox and paste it below this. So we have 2 panels for the upload images. To copy this Flexbox, we need to press Ctrl C, which copies the Flexbox, select the parent component in which we want to paste it, and press Ctrl V. Now we have 2 display panels. Let's change the placeholder images and the example images for the background panel. To do that, go to the settings options and click on SRC and click on the image uploaded which we want to use as placeholder. The image is set. Similarly, let's change the example images. All the example images are now set, and now we have two panels. In the next video, we'll talk about how to display one panel at a time and how to switch between panels by clicking on this image button and the background button. We will also talk about how to make this app functional, which is how you can upload the images by clicking here and display the results here. That will all be covered in the next video, containing all the details about how you can create the backend of your app using a tree framework. Thank you guys for watching this video. See you in the next video.